Superman is boring, and that's exactly the way you feel about God. Don't believe me? Think I'm crazy? Then sit down, strap in, and let's find out. I'm Gary Mitchell, and welcome to the first episode of Geek Theology. We're going to kick things off by talking about Superman, arguably the most iconic character in literary history. A hero that's so near and dear to my heart that I actually wrote a song about him that sounds like this.
Oh, look up in the sky. Do you believe a man can fly?
And we're going to play it for you a little later, but for right now, let's talk about the Man of Steel. So what's he all about? Superman was created by writer Jerry Siegel and artist Joe Shuster in 1933. They eventually sold the character to what would become DC Comics in 1938. That same year, the Superman we know today made his first appearance in Action Comics #1, a book that not only basically invented the modern superhero, but if you happen to find a good copy of it, will also cost you upwards of $3 million. Since then, Superman has appeared in every media form, from radio and TV shows to movies, video games, and of course, comic books. Now, I don't actually need to explain Superman's origins from the comics, do I? I mean, is there anyone that doesn't already know that he's an alien from the planet Krypton, whose parents sent him away as a baby to save his life right before the planet blew up? I mean, everybody already knows that he landed in a small Kansas town called Smallville and was found and raised by Jonathan and Martha Kent, who named him Clark. And you guys all know that as a Kryptonian on Earth, the yellow sun gives him like a crap ton of superpowers that he uses to protect mankind. You already know all that, so I don't have to tell you. Okay, so that's Superman's deal, but the real question is, why should you care? I'm glad you asked. But before I answer that, it's time for our first location change. Check it out. Welcome to the Fortress of Solitude, Superman's headquarters and home away from home. It's also a kind of trophy museum filled with rare items and souvenirs from his adventures across the universe. Now, here's why you should care about Superman. It always makes me sad when I hear people say things like, Superman's boring, Superman's just too perfect, I can't relate to him. No! The only reason you think that is because you don't get what makes Superman interesting. Now, I could talk for hours about why Superman is a compelling character, but I'm gonna try hard to condense it into 2 points. Number 1, Superman is an illegal alien. Superman grew up here on Earth, but he's not from here. He was born on another world, and his parents basically smuggled him across our intergalactic border. So Superman struggles with the same issues that any immigrant has. The constant struggle of being a child of two worlds, the longing to know and connect with the heritage that he's lost, the endless questions about who his parents were and what his people were like. These are all things that any immigrant understands. So Superman adopts this world because it's adopted him. But everything about his world and his culture is space dust. And ironically, despite all of his power, there's nothing he can do about that. So Superman is an immigrant, and the best Superman stories are the ones that deal with him wrestling with that dual citizenship. Number 2, Superman is better than us. And over the decades, being a morally uncompromised hero has become central to the character. Look, I'll just say it, Superman is supposed to be morally superior to us. His very existence on this world is meant to challenge us to get our act together. In the 1978 Superman movie, Jor-El, Superman's Kryptonian dad, is very clear that they sent him to Earth so he could set an example for us. They can be a great people, Kal-El. They wish to be. They only lack the light to show the way. For this reason, above all others, I have sent them you. In 2013, director Zack Snyder made a movie called Man of Steel. And while I have huge problems with parts of that movie, in it, Jor-El basically says the same thing. You will give the people of Earth an ideal to strive towards. They will race behind you. They will stumble, they will fall, but in time, they will join you in the sun. The problem is people don't know what to do with a morally uncompromised hero because you don't ever see that anymore. So no, he's not as sexy and cool as Wolverine or Batman. And he's not as funny as Spiderman or Deadpool. But there's still something there that I think we as a society desperately need to recapture. Psst. Hey, Hollywood. Can we talk? Listen, I know it's really hard not to make Superman seem boring, But here's the thing. If you're trying to do Superman some way that makes him edgy and cool or somehow brings him down to our level, you're doing it wrong. Superman is supposed to embody virtue that the rest of us can aspire to. And if you compromise that, you're destroying the very thing that makes him relevant in the first place. We have plenty of heroes to relate to. That's not what that character is for. Sorry. I'm good. Let's go.
You need a minute?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
You know Batman's better, right?
Well, speaking of Batman, by now you've had time to see the recent Batman v Superman Yawn of Justice movie. Deeply polarizing film. Some people loved it, some people hated it, but most of us were just like, meh. And while I've already posted my probably too kind thoughts on the film, I will say this. Spoiler warning, Superman dies at the end. Warner Brothers finally did their big screen adaptation of the Death of Superman storyline from the comics. And while some folks give them points for having the balls to go there, I actually feel like it was kind of a cop-out. You can tell the people that made this movie at least kind of get that Superman is supposed to be inspiring us, but to quote Batman himself, the last time he really inspired anyone was when he was dead. So they took the easy way out and just did that. Instead of having him actually be Superman in these movies, they just killed him off because it was the fastest way to get there. Okay, you know what? Let's just head to Metropolis, Superman's main stomping grounds. Now it's time for the big question. What can we learn from Superman? So the first thing that Superman has taught me is to do what you can to help others. By his actions, Superman is saying, hey, I'm out here helping people. You can do it too. You don't have to be Superman, just do what you can to help people. When Superman stops an earthquake or saves the world from monsters, he's just doing what he can do to help. Now with that much power, there's a lot he can do that we can't. But the idea is still the same. If you and I and everyone everywhere just did whatever we can do, we could fix a lot of the problems that we have in the world. And that's exactly what Superman is trying to inspire us to do. Do what's right and do what you can to help other people. It's that simple. So, what could you be doing right now to help other people that you're not? Your friends, your family, your coworkers, or people you don't even know. Maybe you know somebody that's kind of been going through something lately. Shoot them a text or an email, or even go old school with an actual phone call and just say, hey, how's it going? Was just thinking about you. Let's get lunch, let's get coffee and catch up. Maybe you've got a little extra money right now, whatever that is. Instead of buying like a new video game or more shoes or something, jump online and find a local nonprofit or food bank and make a donation, or better yet, volunteer. We see people like this on the side of the road all the time. If you're not comfortable giving them cash, that's totally fine. So buy them a sandwich or a meal, or better yet, a grocery card, and give that to them instead. Be smart about it, be safe about it, but just do whatever you can to help people. Guys, hit me up in the comments below and let me know the last time that you went out of your way to help somebody, or the last time somebody did that for you. Because those kinds of Superman moments are exactly what life is about. Now I've got something kind of strange to tell you about, but just go with it. Because this last point is so important that we had to go all the way to space to get it. Learning to appreciate a character like Superman has actually helped me form a better perspective on what I believe God is like. The Old and New Testaments of the Bible give numerous metaphors about the character of God. Sometimes he's portrayed as a vengeful, I'm gonna smite you God. And sometimes he's a father or a shepherd or even a lover that's longing for a relationship with us. And that's hard to get our heads around, so people tend to swing to one extreme or the other. They think that God is either all judgment and divine wrath, or that he's all love and forgiveness and rainbows and puppies. And the problem is, swinging to either of those extremes is, I think, an incomplete picture of who God is. Because if he's all judgment and divine wrath, then there's no room for him to care about human beings, which I promise you he does. But if he's all forgiveness and hugs, then he's not a God that holds us accountable for our actions and punishes sin, which I also believe he does. So I believe that God, to some extent, is both of those things. And if that doesn't make any sense, just look at Superman. Superman is a nice guy. He's kind, he's patient, but he's also really scary, because if he sneezes too hard, he's gonna kill you. So you can trust him because you know he cares about you and he's trying to help you. But at the same time, he cares very much about what's right and what's wrong. He does stand for truth. He does stand for justice. And if you're out there hurting people, you better believe he's going to take you down. If he seems hard to relate to, it's probably because he's so far ahead of us. And some folks just don't take him seriously because they mistake his kindness for weakness. Lastly, he's frequently misunderstood. With that much power, Superman could easily solve most of our problems. Yet there are certain things he chooses not to do. Why? Because he knows that this is our planet. And in the end, these are our problems to solve. And I feel like sometimes that's the way God relates to the world too. God is all powerful. He could easily fix everything that's wrong with our world. But then what's the point of giving us free will and putting us in charge? So sometimes things happen and people are like, God, why don't you do something about this? And sometimes, but not always, maybe God's response is, well, why don't you do something about that? Through Superman, the character of God makes more sense to me. And being that he's frequently portrayed in a Jesus-like fashion, I get the feeling I'm not the only one. Which brings me back to my opening statement and why I made this video at all. If we as a culture reach a point where we think Superman is boring and irrelevant, we got problems.
Bum, ba-da-da-da, bum, bum, ba, bum, ba-da-da-da, ra-ba-da.
Guys, I told you before I wrote a song about Superman, and the music video for it is going to play right after this. So if you want to check it out, just keep watching. In the meantime, if you like this video, hit that thumbs up button for me, and make sure you subscribe to my channel. There's a ton more stuff on the way, so stay tuned. And send this link to a few friends you think might appreciate it. Also, don't forget, I want to hear about some of your Superman moments in the comments below. Finally, be sure to tune in next time when I'll be talking about a little something that sounds like this. Oh yeah, we're doing that. I'm Gary Mitchell, and my song, A Superman, is coming at you right now.